World War II wasn't only fought on battlefields, it also involved covert dealings where alliances blurred and loyalties shifted. Today, on the Forgotten Chronicles, we uncover the controversial connections between two powerful American brothers and high-ranking Nazi officials. Were these deals about securing victory, or were they really about protecting US business interests in a post-war world? Allen and John Foster Dulles were two of the most influential figures in mid-20th century American politics. Their impact on both domestic and international affairs was profound and far-reaching. Allen, a senior officer in the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, precursor to the CIA, had connections all over Europe. His work during World War II laid the groundwork for modern intelligence operations, and his influence extended well into the Cold War era. His brother, John Foster, later became the Secretary of State. As Secretary of State, John Foster Dulles was a key architect of US foreign policy during the 1950s, shaping the country's stance during the early years of the Cold War. Together, the Dulles brothers were not only deeply entrenched in government, but also had long-standing ties with powerful American corporations. Their relationships with corporate leaders influenced both economic and political strategies, making them pivotal figures in the intersection of government and business during their time. While stationed in Switzerland during World War II, Allen Dulles was in a unique position to make contact with German officials. Switzerland, being neutral, provided a perfect cover for clandestine operations and secret meetings. Dulles, a master of espionage, used this to his advantage, and it's widely believed he met with several high-ranking Nazis. These meetings were not just casual encounters, but were strategic discussions that could shape the future of Europe. According to declassified documents, Dulles's focus was on identifying influential figures who could help stabilize Germany after the war. He meticulously reviewed intelligence reports and identified key players who could be instrumental in the post-war reconstruction. But some claim his motives went beyond military strategy. There are theories suggesting that Dulles was also looking out for economic interests. Could Dulles have been brokering deals to protect US business interests in a post-war Germany? These speculations arise from his connections with American business executives and the timing of his meetings. Was he laying the groundwork for a new economic order, ensuring that American businesses would thrive in a recovering Europe? The true extent of his dealings remains a topic of intense debate among historians. Historians have suggested that Dulles prioritized economic interests as much as political ones. American corporations had established profitable relationships with German companies before the war, and it's rumored that Dulles made arrangements to shield these companies in exchange for future cooperation. Some even allege he facilitated the escape of German officials who had connections to these US firms, allowing them to evade prosecution. After the war, the influence of the Dulles brothers became more pronounced. John Foster Dulles, who would become Secretary of State, and his brother Allen Dulles, who would head the CIA, were pivotal in shaping America's post-war strategy. Their roles were not just limited to their official titles, they were architects of a new world order. As the Cold War loomed, Allen Dulles, who later became CIA director, saw value in repurposing former Nazi officials as assets against the Soviet Union. This controversial decision was driven by the urgent need to counter Soviet influence, and it marked a significant shift in American intelligence operations. Critics argue that this was part of a larger pattern of forgiving Nazi collaborators who were useful to American interests. This pragmatic approach was seen by some as a betrayal of the principles the Allies had fought for, while others viewed it as a necessary evil in the face of a new global threat. This philosophy of prioritizing utility over justice reflected a new era of intelligence and foreign policy. The Dulles brothers' strategies were instrumental in defining the early years of the Cold War, setting precedents that would influence American actions for decades to come. Their legacy is a complex one, marked by both strategic brilliance and moral ambiguity. Though official accounts minimize the extent of these dealings, the legacy of the Dulles brothers' involvement with Nazi officials remains controversial. Did they act out of pragmatism in a time of shifting alliances, or were they deliberately safeguarding business interests? To this day, these actions spark debate over the ethics of post-war policy.